As an elementary and middle school librarian, I wore many hats. Within any given day, I was a specials teacher, reading tutor, math group leader, yearbook advisor, librarian, entertainer, boo-boo healer, role model, shoelace tire, and cheerleader, just to name a few. But my favorite and the most rewarding was my role as storyteller. Picture it. Students sitting comfortably on the carpet, waiting to find out what book we would be reading during story time. From Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus to A Wrinkle in Time, students would look up at the book and listen with rapt attention. Storytime was the great equalizer, as both high-achieving and struggling students were engaged during this time. As I read aloud, you could hear a pin drop in the rest of the room. The only sounds were giggles during the funny parts, awes if something sweet happened, and gasps if the story took an unexpected twist. Students from ages 4 to 15 all had the same reaction to a book being read aloud. Even in a world where almost all of my students have access to TikTok, video games, YouTube, and Netflix, being read aloud to is still an experience that captures their attention and ignites their imaginations. Why did my colleagues and I put so much energy into our story times, choosing just the right books and reading them in just the right way? Here's why. According to the Warner School of Education, reading aloud to children sets them up for a lifelong love of books and reading. With each read aloud, we are showing our students that reading is amazing. With each book read, we teachers have a secret, ulterior motive. We are preparing today's students to become tomorrow's leaders. As our students are enjoying a story about a hungry caterpillar or a chocolate factory full of wonder, we know that a whole lot more is going on. According to research from George Mason University, reading strengthens the brain, builds vocabulary, creates background knowledge, increases empathy, and reduces stress. It is nearly impossible to be an effective leader without strength in all of these skills. According to the Harvard Business Review, deep, broad reading habits are an essential part of all of our leaders. A researcher who interviewed 1,200 of the world's most successful people found that nearly all of them had one thing in common: strong reading habits. We see evidence of this in our greatest political leaders. Teddy Roosevelt was known as one of the most voracious readers of all time, having read up to 3 books a day, including ancient Greek philosophies to Grimm's fairy tales. Winston Churchill was known as an insatiable reader who loved H.G. Wells' Time Machine and Orwell's 1984. And according to Barack Obama, who loves classic and contemporary novels, storytelling and literature are more important than ever. We see this in our great business leaders, like Bill Gates, who reads over 50 books a year, from A Stranger in a Strange Land to Bono's autobiography. And when Warren Buffett was asked about the key to his success, he pointed to a stack of books and said that he reads 500 pages a day. Even the great scientific leader, Albert Einstein, is credited with saying, "If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want your children to be more intelligent, read them more fairy tales." Armed with this knowledge of the importance of reading, we teachers work tirelessly to inspire a love of reading in our students and to teach them how to read. We know that reading is a key predictor of future success and a skill that will launch our students into becoming future leaders. A study at the University of Edinburgh followed over 17,000 students for 50 years. They found that students with higher reading ability had higher incomes, better housing, and more professional roles as adults. A study at the University of Maryland came to the same conclusion, finding that literacy is the key to economic and social power, regardless of socioeconomic class. There's an old adage in education that first students learn to read, and then they read to learn. And this makes sense. How can we expect our students to become leaders in the fields of business, politics, technology, science, art, or even math if they struggle through reading and comprehending the written word? Reading is a crucial component of educating our future leaders, and yet reading achievement declines every year. A bleak picture is painted whether you look at the nation's report card or local standardized test scores. Less than half of American students in grades 3 and above are proficient in reading, with scores continuing to drop. And when we break this down even further, looking specifically at students of color, English language learners, and students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, the results are even more dire. How did we get here? Do we blame teachers, students, parents? Is it the pandemic slide? Standardized testing? Have TikTok and video games caused this? Do we point to a lack of funding, teacher shortages, overcrowded classrooms, and inadequate teacher preparation programs? Is it that so many of our students are coming to school with mental health issues, worries about their families in crisis, and empty stomachs? Do we blame the artificial intelligence that can do our students' homework for them, the rise in student absences, or the fear of school shootings that is all too real for students today? Educators are dealing with all of these issues every day with little support and tiny paychecks. It is no wonder our education system is failing. In addition, education has become even more politicized, with so much time and money going into initiatives that are helping politicians win votes instead of helping our students. Banning books and ideas from classrooms is not making our students any smarter. In fact, access to books is shown to have a positive impact on student achievement. Removing books from classrooms is certainly moving us in the wrong direction. And what happens to the empathy and exposure to other cultures that books provide when we consider that over 80% of the books being banned focus on the topics of the LGBTQ plus community, people of color, and immigrants? The works of Harper Lee, Toni Morrison, J.D. Salinger, Anne Frank, and countless others are cited as being some of the most influential books of all time. They have all also recently been banned. What stories and ideas are our future leaders missing out on as books are being removed from classrooms and libraries across our nation? In addition, these initiatives take the focus away from the very real problems with education that we are facing. If not addressed, these problems will have a devastating impact on our future. According to the World Economic Forum, many low-wage, low-skill jobs will disappear globally due to automation. These will be replaced by jobs that require soft skills like critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. Literacy is the foundation for all of those skills. The reading crisis in our schools will truly take a village to fix. It is going to take brave government officials, strong leadership, and talented professionals to work as a team. The pandemic shone a spotlight on the problems in education, and leaders are finally paying attention. They need to start by providing students with a research-based reading curriculum and teachers who are experts at implementing it. The state of future leadership and reading looks grim, but I have not lost hope. I remind myself of those magical story times where 20 little faces were looking up at me, so excited to find out what happens if you give a mouse a cookie or take an adventure in a magic treehouse. Teachers and librarians are planting the seeds to turn today's readers into tomorrow's leaders. If our policymakers and educators can get it right, these children are ready to soar. Thank you.